It is Wager Talk Today, Tuesday, June the 18th. I was going to say summer has officially started because the NBA playoffs have ended, but actually summer might start tomorrow because the NHL playoffs might end tonight. We will talk about the NHL Game 5 with Jesse Schule a little bit later. Also going to talk some soccer as well. But first, we're going to start off with Ross Benjamin. Oh, by the way, no Arthur DeCesar today on Tuesday. He'll be back Friday, but we got Andy Lang, the prop master, to close out the show, so not a bad replacement there. But we got to start off with the lead story, and that's $2 Tuesday. Ross Benjamin's going to look at a couple baseball games, and both Ross and Jesse are on today's show for a good reason because they are a full-time exclusive now at WagerTalk.com. And let's bring on the first one, Ross Benjamin. Ross, we had you on Friday, and many of the viewers were concerned about the transition, so they wanted to make sure the transition was complete. And as you can see, he decided to stay Ross Benjamin. One of the viewers said he were going to become Rose Benjamin. I saw that after the show. I meant to message you. I thought that was a pretty good one. But no, he stayed Ross Benjamin. The transition is complete, and he is now at WagerTalk.com full-time. Ross, welcome to the show once again, and tell us about that $2 strong best bet you got going for Tuesday.
Well, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be on with you and Teddy. And, $2 Tuesday, folks. 5% top play total. Goes in the game tonight between the Seattle Mariners and the Cleveland Guardians. Cashed in with my 5% top play last night. Rare that I have back-to-back days with 5% top plays. Last night I had the Boston Celtics minus 6.5, and it's an easy winner. And I plan on having another easy winner tonight, even though the guys are telling me it's a jinx to be on a $2 Tuesday. But I'm going to break that trend. And, my totals also in all sports up 6,290 units since June 30th of last year. All my five-star top plays, Steve, are on a 19-8 run right now, and that's good for 70%. So I'm very confident in this selection tonight. 5% top play total, Seattle, Cleveland, 6:45 Eastern time, scheduled first pitch right now. $2, $2. Come on. Are you kidding me?
Let's get into some of the games that we want to discuss on the show for today, Ross. Obviously, we're not going to give away your $2 Tuesday play on the show, but let's start with some Red Sox and Blue Jays. Boston, arguably playing their best baseball of the season right now. The bats have been going. The Red Sox won the first of this series last night. Look at the Wager Talk free live odds screen right now. Boston's taking the money again today. Red Sox, let's call them minus 120, total sitting at 7.5 in Toronto against the Blue Jays. How do we break this one down?
Yeah, it's one of those situations. I think the opening line showed that Boston was a bit undervalued here, considering how they're playing right now and how lackluster the Toronto Blue Jays have been all year long, especially offensively. I think when you talk about underachieving offensive teams this year, the Toronto Blue Jays have to be in the top 5 in that regard. Anyway, Boston coming off that 7-3 win at Toronto last night. They've now won 5 of their last 6. They've scored 7 runs or more in all 5 of those wins. They're hitting .316 as a team over their last 7 games. So exactly what Teddy just led me into. Tanner Houck gets a start tonight for the Red Sox. 6 road starts this year, a 1.89 ERA, a 0.82 whip, averaging 6.3 innings pitched per start in those road outings. And he's overall in his last 5, he's been in tremendous form with a 1.91 ERA, 0.82 whip, over 6 innings pitched per start. And the Boston bullpen has performed very well over their last 7 games with a 2.49 staff ERA, 4-for-4 on their save opportunities. So from a pitching standpoint and from a hitting standpoint, this sets up very well for the Red Sox. And, you look at their home and away splits, Teddy, 18-20 at home, 20-15 on the road. So they played much better on the road than at the friendly confines of Fenway Park. As a matter of fact, not only 20-15 on the road, 13-4 on the road this year when they faced teams like the Blue Jays that averaged 2.75 or less extra base hits per game. Toronto this year is only averaging 2.61 extra base hits per game. So another very strong trend in that regard. Chris Bassett's pitched pretty well. I mean, A 4.12 ERA is respectable, but I look at his WHIP of 142, and that's at home, by the way. 4-3 at home with a 4.12 ERA and a 142 WHIP. But if you look at his WHIP on a season, Teddy, it's right around the same, in the 140 range. And when I see a guy just in the low fours for an ERA and a WHIP approaching 1.5, it tells me it's just a matter of time before that WHIP, that high WHIP, catches up to him. And the ERA could be a little bit deceiving. The Toronto bullpen, by the way, a 4.90 ERA at home this year. But here's what concerns me the most with the Toronto Blue Jays is they're very prone to giving up the long ball at home. 24 home runs in 126.7 innings pitched for their bullpen. And this is a Toronto Blue Jays team when they're a small underdog of this variety between plus 100 to plus 150. They've broke their backers this year, going 4-18 in that role and getting outscored by 3.3 runs per game. Teddy, give me the Boston Red Sox here on the road, minus 120 over the Toronto Blue Jays.
Let's talk about Chris Bassett for a minute, because Bassett to me is a really interesting pitcher. All right. His April was not good. But you look at him from the beginning of May, his April, he got lit up 3 or 4 times in early season starts. I think, 4 out of his first 6 starts weren't good. And his WHIP was through the roof and his ERA was through the roof. Since the beginning of May, the guy's made 9 starts. He's given up 12 runs. The hits are down. The walks are down. He's been really good. His last 5 starts, he's given up a total of 5 runs. Red Sox have a terrible track record against him. I think they've hit 170 against him in their respective careers. So are you worried at all that Bassett may be a bet on hurler in this ballgame and put Boston behind the 8 ball?
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing I looked at, especially if you look at the 2 starts he made last year against the Red Sox. He completely shut them down. That was correct me if I'm wrong. I know you said they're hitting 170 as a team against them in the current roster, but it was a much different lineup last year than this year. Having said all that, when I look at how the Red Sox have been hitting of late, and I look at his opposing starting pitcher in Tanner Houck and how great a form he's been in on the road and over his last 5 starts. And I look at the Boston bullpen and how well they pitched. And then I look at Toronto, and like I said earlier, this is a team over their last 7 games. They're hitting 232 as a team. Not horrible, but not very good at all, and only averaging 3.4 runs per game. And their bullpen's proneness to giving up as many home runs as they have already at home in regards to home runs versus innings pitched. I'm willing to overlook that a bit, Teddy, because every situation has its own different meaning for me. And I just think the value here, when you look at a team that opened at minus 105, playing as well as they are right now, I'm going to go with Boston here. And your point's well taken. It was considered, and it wasn't enough to sway me.
Ross Benjamin talking some MLB, some baseball here on Wager Talk Today. I'm Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez this week. He is on assignment. His transition will be complete. He'll be back on Monday. That is Teddy Covers, my co-host as always. And Ross Benjamin's transition, once again, is complete. He is full-time, exclusive now, WagerTalk.com. You can get his $2 Tuesday best bet tonight for just $2. It's that simple. Check it out right now. It's a baseball game we are not talking about. It's the Seattle-Cleveland game, and that is available right now at WagerTalk.com. Yeah, Red Sox offensive momentum, Ross, is just insane. They've won 5 of their last 6, 7 runs or more in every one of those wins, 11 hits or more. So they are definitely red hot offensively. We'll talk more baseball also 2 o'clock Eastern today on the First Pitch Show live here on the network. Dan Alexander, myself, Steve Merrill, and Eric Polly from the Gold Sheet. And you can chime in with live viewer questions on any game, any pitcher prop you want to talk about. We will answer it live at 2 o'clock Eastern here on Wager Talk TV. All right, Ross, while I've got you, I got to ask you about my Washington Nationals. Yes, they're my Nationals again because they are in playoff contention. They actually have a better record right now than the defending National League champs, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Both teams are below 500 still. But what are your thoughts on the Nats? They're in good current form. They've now won 8 of their last 9 games. Are the Nationals for real this year, Ross?
I don't know if they're for real, Steve, but I know they're playing really good right now. And it's hard to step in front of them as a small money line home favorite against an Arizona team that's been pretty much up and down all season long. They've had their moments, and every time you think they're starting to turn it around, they disappoint you. But let's start with the starting pitching matchup. Nice Irish guy pitching for Arizona tonight, Steve. Slade Ciccone. And he's made 8 starts this year with a 6.18 ERA. Only kidding about the Irish part, folks. 6.18 ERA and less than 5 innings pitched per start. He's allowed, here's an alarming thing, 9 home runs and 39 and 1/3 innings pitched this year. Over his last 6, it's been even worse than that. A 7.90 ERA over his last 6 starts, a 161 whip, which is not good. Only averaging 4.6 innings pitched per start over the last 6, and allowing 8 home runs and only 27 1/3 innings pitched. No matter how you cut it, that's terrible. He's made 5 starts at night this year. Arizona's gone 1-4. Why? Well, he has an 8.87 ERA and a 159 whip in those 5 starts at night. That might have a lot to do with it. An Arizona bullpen, it's not so much that they have a bad ERA over the last 7, but their whip is around 146. And here's what concerns me, Teddy. They've averaged 4.9 innings pitched per game over their last 7 starts. And we know from handicapping baseball all those years, that's a red flag because that's a bullpen that's worn down and eventually going to implode at that rate. And they've also allowed 5 home runs in their last 7 games, meaning the bullpen. Steve, you touched upon 8 of their last 9. They've also won 6 straight at home, not only winning 6 straight at home, but outscoring the opposition by 3.5 runs per game. So they're not only winning, but they're blowing teams out at home. And here's a guy that I think is flying under the radar right now for the Washington Nationals. That's starting pitcher Jake Irvin. 5 quality starts in a row. And for those of you not familiar with quality starts and what it means beyond the obvious definition, is the fact that baseball terminology, a quality start is 6 innings or more pitched, and also 3 earned runs or less allowed. And he's done that 5 consecutive times. And over his last 4, a 1.13 ERA, a 0.96 whip, and a better than 6-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. That's really, really good. Washington's bullpen, not great, but they're 3.77 ERA, 1.27 whip at home. That'll get it done when I deem to have a huge starting pitching matchup like I have here with a red-hot team like the Washington Nationals and a team that's lacked consistency since the start of the year in the Arizona Diamondbacks. On here, both teams coming off an off day, Teddy. Washington 5-1 in their last 6 off and off day. Arizona 2-7 this year off and off day, and getting outscored by 2.7 runs per game. You guessed it, Teddy. I like Washington here. Laid a number minus 120 over Arizona. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Just real quick, Ross, before we let you go, I got to ask you, what are the, because it sounds to me, as you're talking out this game, I'm like, okay, Washington's a minus 160, minus $1.60, minus Washington's $1.80. No, they're basically pick up minus 120. What are the markets seeing on the Arizona side, keeping this line so low?
I think it's still fresh in their mind that this is a team that got to the World Series last year. Also, the perception of a team that went to the World Series last year against the lowly Washington Nationals, and failing to realize, exactly how well they're playing, failing to realize the starting pitching matchup, and a lot of the other factors that I brought in. Also, the fact that it's not like Arizona's in a tailspin right now, but it's just been a lot of back and forth, Teddy. So that's what I would attribute that to. And Jake Irvin, again, I think he's a vastly underrated pitcher that people are not accounting for. And so that would be my answer to your great question, as always.
Yeah, and I think the reason also is what you said, Ross, is that the Nationals remain maybe an underrated team. Teddy, you've talked about the Orioles, my Baltimore Orioles as a child, now my Washington Nationals. And Nats are up over 14 units on the money line, the most profitable team in the National League, 3rd most profitable team in baseball this year after the Guardians and Yankees for money one. So it looks like once again, the odds makers, the betting public, maybe not giving their true due. They're 8-1 their last 9, and they're barely above a pick'em tonight on Tuesday. $2 Tuesday, Ross Benjamin, WagerTalk.com. Ross, tell him once again about that strong play tonight.
Yeah, $2. Not only a $2 play, a 5% top play. Okay, so 19-8 run with my 5% top plays over at Sportsmemo and now WagerTalk. Good for 70%. Cleveland Guardians hosting the Seattle Mariners, 6:45 Eastern time, folks. $2. $2. That's all it costs you. Take advantage of the offer, because I don't know the next time I'll be selling a pick for $2, but I know damn well this, Teddy. I'm going to break the trend of these $2 losers that you guys talked about with me off air.
Oh, it's not a trend. It's just something we made fun of you about. The $2 plays have done fine over the years, but we razz the new cappers when they have a $2 play, just like we did with you today. But the $2 plays have been surprisingly good over the years, considering the pressure that the cappers have when they get named as the $2 Tuesday guy. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck with your play tonight.
Very inappropriate to make fun of Ross Benjamin. I would never do that. Transition is complete. All right, Ross, good seeing you. Teddy covers. We got Jesse Schule, the other newest member of WagerTalk.com, coming up in a moment. He's going to look at the NHL Game 5 Stanley Cup Finals tonight, and also Euro 24, which is the biggest betting event going on right now worldwide. So some pertinent information coming up from Jesse. We also have Andy Lang, the prop master, joining us at the end of the show. But before we do so, NBA Finals are done. I joke that summer starts. Well, for me, summer does start today because I don't do hockey. You don't either. I really do feel like summer begins when the NBA ends. And, I've been watching the future odds have been up basically the entire playoffs. Boston, a heavy favorite. What are your thoughts on next year's future odds? Celtics are a pretty big favorite over everybody else, but doesn't look like it's not deserved.
I have no idea about next year's futures odds. I'm not worried about next year's futures odds until at least after the draft and free agency. Then we can start talking about next year's futures odds. If you want to make bets right now for the NBA Finals next year, knock yourself out. Not a bet that I'm going to make the day after the Finals ends. There's no reason. But obviously last night the NBA season came to an end. The Celtics win in 5 over the Mavs. Series goes under 5.5 games. Not much drama in the game. Boston was up 21 at halftime. They cruised. Celtics 3-1-1 against the spread in those 5 games, 5-0 to the under. You could have gotten 4-1 with Boston. There were 6.5s in the game that they won by 7. So the Celtics and the under were clearly the plays in the finals. Boston was the favorite coming into the season. They were the favorites all year. They had the best record in the league. They had the best statistical profile in the league, offense and defense. They went 16-3 straight up in the playoffs. They took 3 losses, no more than 1 in the postseason to any team. This was a historical squad, elite. Because their first title, we say they have dynasty potential. I'm curious as to where this particular championship team gets ranked in the pantheon, but this Celtics team was pretty well elite. Now, the NBA is completely different when it comes to championships compared to MLB, NHL, NFL, when it comes to playoff upsets. Look, MLB, just look at baseball last year. The Rangers and the D-backs, both sub-500 teams in 2022. Both sub-500 teams again in 2024. Last year, they met in the World Series. They came out of nowhere. They found magic. They got hot at the right time. That works in baseball. It works in hockey for sure. You get a hot goalie. Boom. Next thing you know, you're playing for a Stanley Cup. In the NFL, too, teams only have to win 3 or 4 playoff games to be Super Bowl champs. Eli did it twice with very mediocre Giants teams. All right, you can get hot in the postseason and win a Super Bowl when you weren't a great team all year. You just don't see that in the NBA. With the 7-game series, the best team that stays healthy almost always wins. The Celtics were the best team, and they stayed healthy. And Al Horford, we'll give him credit. I've always liked that guy. I have nothing but respect for him. 170-something playoff games. 186 career postseason games with 3 different teams. He finally won a title. Good finals for my clients and I. We went 4-1 in the 5 games. In our next season, 317 and 228, 58% counting every play every day in the NBA since 2022, up 224 units of profit. Won last night. And you know what? I'm glad to see the NBA end. It's summertime, Steve. And of course, NFL just around the corner. NFL season wins. You know what happens when the NFL finals end? I start deep dive into, or NBA finals end. I deep dive into the NFL season win report coming out first week of July. we're cramming already. Steve?
Yeah, my favorite part last night was when ABC kept promoting the what's upcoming in the NBA, and they kept showing Game 6 Thursday night. Now, first half, it was 20 points still in reach, and they kind of were hesitating, but they even popped it up in the fourth quarter. And at least the announcers like, unlikely Game 6 on Thursday night. I mean, it's just ridiculous that they're still showing that. But the NBA draft is right around the corner. That's the other thing they were promoting for next week. And that's always somewhat exciting because it's the one sport in which a top 5, top 10 guy can make a drastic difference on a team overnight, unlike the NFL where, you got 22 players on the field at a time. One thing I will point out, though, Teddy, I agree with you about the chalk-heavy nature of the NBA. We've talked about it for decades, that the cream rises to the top because unlike baseball or hockey where a pitcher or a goaltender can carry an inferior team in a 7-game series, basketball, that doesn't happen. But then again, the NCAA tournament is such the opposite because it's a one and done. A team like the Celtics, as dominant as they were, had they had one of those off shooting nights like the Game 2s early or the Game 4 the other night, they would have been bumped in the NCAAs. So that's why the March Madness is the madness, but the NBA Finals are different. One thing I'll point out, though, I heard this last night. I was surprised. First time in 7 years that the best winning percentage team in the NBA won the title. So although it is chalk heavy when you get to the best of 7, the best team in the NBA, I believe, had not won it for 7 years. I was surprised by that. And I think a lot of that, of course, has to do with load management, injuries, and everything as well, kind of waters down some of these NBA regular season records. And also, it's the 6th different winner, I believe, in the last 6 NBA finals. So although the cream rises to the top, we've had a lot of parity, and the regular season hasn't mattered quite as much in recent years. So that is something that has changed versus maybe the 90s when you and I started. But Celtics won it easy. A fantastic season for my clients, of course. Number 1 this year, number 1 all time, still units won in the NBA. So bittersweet for me. Wish the NBA was still here. We had an easy winner on the Celtics last night to finish it off. But I am happy that summertime is officially here. So at least we have some nice weather and some stuff to do the next couple months. NBA draft, though, right around the corner. Let's talk some baseball later today at 2 o'clock Eastern on MLB First Pitch. But we also do have hockey Game 5. And for a Canadian like Jesse Schule, summer does not begin until the NHL season ends. So, Jesse, we'll talk about Game 5 here. The similarities between the NBA and the NHL so far have been remarkable. I mean, both Dallas and Edmonton down 0-3 have easy home wins in Game 4. We saw what happened to the Mavs last night. If history repeats itself, or if that correlation holds, probably not good news for the Oilers tonight in Game 5 back in Florida.
Got no volume, buddy. All right, let's have them straighten it out. We can't have dead air. Yeah,
Teddy, we talked about this yesterday. Dallas, actually, I didn't point this out on the show yesterday. I pointed it out on my video and some other things on Twitter. After Game 4, the Mavericks had outscored the Celtics by 6 points in the NBA Finals. How crazy is that? 3-1 lead.
Yeah.
And now, look, I had a strong play on Boston. I loved the play last night, so I didn't want to see this happen. But the Celtics could have won the NBA championship last night, 4-1, and been outscored in the series still if it had been a 5-point margin or less, which would have been just insane. I don't think it could happen in hockey, I guess. I haven't followed the hockey that closely, but that 8-1 win the other night, actually, Edmonton might be up. I'll have to go back and look. Viewers in the live chat, you probably know better than me. But we'll let you know when Jesse is ready to go. Our producer, Dan the Man, will tell me in my earpiece when he hears them. Once again, baseball show will be on at 2 o'clock Eastern live with Dan Alexander, Eric Pauly, and myself, Steve Merrill. Teddy, NBA draft. I don't mess with it. I have a feeling you probably
before
don't.
You ask me a question, because you brought something up that I want to talk about, the point differential, because we talk about theories about betting on sports, and certainly the Pythagorean theory,
right,
where you look at a team's point differential, and from that, you generate what their record in theory should have been. And you say teams overachieve and underachieve based on total run differential, total point differential. And in my mind, I find that to be a flawed statistic, because what we saw in the finals, that shows exactly why it's, in my mind, a flawed metric. Yes, Dallas completely annihilated Boston in one game. And yet, for the full series, there wasn't a question. Boston was the better of the two teams. At the end, you look and say, oh, wow, the point differential isn't that different. Sometimes you see in looking at the baseball numbers and the run differential, you're like, wow, this team's not that good. How are they plus runs? Or this team is not that bad. How are they negative runs? The advanced metric markets, the wise guys, really look at the run differentials and the point differentials as a meaningful factor for how good teams are. And when you see a team win by 40 or 50, it doesn't mean that that they're the better team. It just means they had that right game. They had the perfect game. I tend not to use the Pythagorean stuff in my handicapping. I find it to be an overrated factor. Are you in that same boat, Steve, or is that something you use as something that gives you an idea of how good these teams actually are?
No, excellent question. I'm glad we're going there because this is something I like to talk about. Let's back up a little bit. In simplicity, everyone thinks the point spread is so magical, and it really is remarkable how accurate it's become, for the most part, sharper than it's ever been the 30 years you and I have been doing this. But in its simplicity, the point spread is not magical. The point spread is basically margin of victory factored in with schedule strength. And all things equal, if you have the same lineups all season, the teams are playing equal schedules, which in the NBA, the NFL, they pretty much do. Obviously, college sports, you have a big disparity between the SEC and the MAC, for example, in football. But if your schedule strength is equal, if everyone is healthy and the lineups haven't changed, the point differential is pretty close to what the power ratings are and pretty close to what the point spread is going to be. What you got to be careful with, though, and what we're talking about with Game 4 is outlier results. And that's another reason why an average is never as good as a median, especially if you have a large sample size, because you can throw out those outliers, the 40-point win, the 40-point loss, and look at maybe the 3 median games. You're going to get closer to the true average, the better of the numbers. Baseball is interesting, though, with the run differential, and I like to talk about the expected win loss a lot. MLB has it on their standings page, so it's easy to find. And with baseball, you're talking about hundreds of games, over 100 games. So in that case, I do think, it comes out to be a little more accurate. But yeah, in a 4-game sample like the NBA Finals, that's just a textbook example of what you're talking about, Teddy, why you got to be very careful looking at just margin of victory or anything else when it's a small 4-game sample. Teddy's got a big game breakdown in baseball here in a little bit, but we're going to bring on Andy Lang, the prop master, and then we'll try to get Jesse Schule. His transition is not complete, apparently, to WagerTalk.com.
Jesse's ready.
We're still working on. Jesse is ready?
Jesse's standing by for us. Yeah.
All right.
Jesse, welcome to the program.
Let's bring in Jesse.
You guys can
Jesse
hear me
Schule.
now.
We can hear you. So,
All
Jesse,
right.
I was asking you, is Game 5 going to be any different tonight than in the NHL than it was in the NBA last night?
Well, I agree with what you guys were saying. There is some similarities and some differences. Coming into Game 5 in Boston, I don't think anybody really thought the Mavs had a chance to come back and win the series. And few people probably believe the Oilers have a chance, but I think they have a much better chance based on goaltending. Sergei Bobrovsky has now conceded goals late in Game 3, and then he got chased from the net in Game 4. And this is the same Sergei Bobrovsky that gave up 8 goals against the Las Vegas Golden Knights in last year's finals in Game 5. A goalie that loses his edge. I mean, Bobrovsky was on the verge of setting a record for the best save percentage in the finals, and now he's coming off back-to-back subpar performances. I think Florida needs to be careful here. I did bet on the Celtics in the first quarter in Game 5 in Boston. I'm going to take the Florida Panthers team total over a half goal. I like Florida to throw the kitchen sink at the Edmonton Oilers here in the first period. And I'll tell you, they better, because if they let the Oilers get any hope, we could have a series on our hands, especially if somehow the Oilers send this back to Edmonton. I would lean toward the Panthers. I'm a little bit concerned about the goaltending for both teams. I think the safest bet here is Florida to score a first period goal. They've scored in the first period in 4 of their last 5 overall, and 3 of 4 in this series so far.
So is it a scenario where we no longer trust the hot goalie? Because Bobrovsky was the hottest goalie out there. You talked about his struggles last year in Game 5. The last 4 periods have been maybe his worst 4 periods of the postseason. Do you think it's going to be overall a high-scoring game? Or is this just, hey, let's get Florida early and not worry about anything after that?
I would lean overall a high-scoring game, but as you said, there is concerns about Bobrovsky, and the best way to put that to bed is get him an early goal. I think that's really key for Florida, is to start off on the right foot, get ahead early, because if they don't, it could mean trouble.
Jesse Schule, newest member of WagerTalk.com, along with Ross Benjamin, fully exclusive now at WagerTalk. And Jesse, we've been talking about NBA Finals, NHL Finals, but the biggest sporting event in the world right now is Euro 2024. You do handicap soccer as well. Tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, Croatia and Albania. What are you doing with this game?
I am off to a nice 4-0 start in the Euros. Been pretty fortunate there. But originally I was looking at Croatia. They lost 3-0 to Spain. They're already in big trouble in Group B, sitting in last place. And with the goal differential, I was thinking, it might be hard for them to even get out of the group stages. I know this match against Albania will go a long way to determining that. And I think Albania is an underrated team that's sort of a live dog. They did finish first in their group in qualifying. They only conceded 4 goals. I backed away from taking Croatia not to qualify because it turns out a lot of the 4 third-place teams are going to qualify. So it's pretty tough to not qualify for the next round in this tournament. But as far as Albania goes, I think both these teams coming off of a loss, they need to be quite conservative. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a draw. Both these teams played very well defensively in qualifying, conceding 4 goals each in 8 matches. The total's sitting at 2.5. We've seen plenty of goals so far in this tournament, but as we get into the second games, like I said, with the goal differential being so key to advancing to the next round, I expect teams to a lot of teams will be playing for draws. Certainly Albania would love a draw here against Croatia, and final score of 1-1 seems very plausible to me.
I was going to say, this has the makings of a 1-1 game. If it's not 0-0, all over it. Under, looking at the Wager Talk Live odds screen right now, under minus 20, minus 25, if you can't get the best of the number, but a reasonable price to lay at under 2.5 goals for Albania and Croatia. Again, this game, this match goes tomorrow, early tomorrow. Jesse Schule, you're now officially exclusive to WagerTalk.com. What do you have to promote today?
Well, 17-4 with my last 21 5% plays in all sports. A perfect 11-0 with my last 11 5% Major League Baseball. But what I'm really looking forward to, something you guys mentioned, is it's time to start doing your homework for football season. Something early in my career I didn't do until late August. But the last few years, I've started right about now doing my homework mostly for college football because there's so much to cover. And that has paid dividends. The last 2 years, 38-10, 79% in the first month of the season with college football. I'm looking forward to putting some video content out there on Wager Talk TV. And viewers can look forward to seeing that after the All-Star break.
Yeah, and Jesse and Ross, both the 2 newest members of WagerTalk.com, have been on Wager Talk TV, and they both do great content. So, Jesse, looking forward to more content this summer from you. And once again, 17-4 and 5% plays, not too shabby. Jesse Schule, the newest member of WagerTalk.com. Teddy, we're going to have Andy Lang, the prop master, up. He's going to talk some UFC for this Saturday. Also, is going to have a prop in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals for tonight. But before we do so, let's talk a little bit more baseball with you. The Dodgers, they've lost Mookie Betts for a little bit, fractured left hand. I was curious to see how they would respond last night. Pretty good offensive output in the altitude and thin air. We'll see if that was the buy sign with the Dodgers tonight. What are your thoughts on this game tonight on Tuesday, Dodgers at Rockies?
Big game breakdown time. Look, we cashed an over in big game breakdown yesterday with the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. Let's cash another one today, this time in Colorado at the highest scoring ballpark in baseball, Coors Field. And we're going, full game over, not first 5 over. I want to keep the Rockies bullpen in play. We scored 10. Rockies bullpen in play. We saw 10 runs scored 7th inning or later last night. The Rockies bullpen hammered again. It is the worst bullpen in the majors by any metric. They've thrown the most innings. They've allowed the most base runners. They have the worst ERA, the worst whip. You name it. The Dodgers do have injuries, for sure. No Mookie Betts right now. No Max Muncy. I get it. And the wind is blowing in tonight. There's a chance of rain. I get it. We've seen under money for this ballgame. That being said, no Mookie Betts, no Matt Muncy, Max Muncy. The Dodgers 6, 7, 8, 9 hitters last night for LA. How many teams can do this? 6, 7, 8, 9 hitter, bottom of the order, 8 hits, 7 runs, 6 RBIs. Team walked 8 times last night. All right. Is there any pitchers in this game that we trust? I'm not trusting Walker Buehler right now. 7 starts in his return from missing, a year and a half after nearly career-ending surgery. He's got 1 quality start in the bunch. 2 June starts. He has 5 strikeouts total, and 8 innings pitched. He's no ace. Current Rockies have hit him hard, 295 batting average against, 856 OPS, more than 100 plate appearances in the sample size. The Gomber has a terrible track record against LA. The Rockies are hitting a little bit. They scored 39 runs in their last 6 games, 4-2 to the over. Put it all together. Okay, the wind's blowing in a little bit. Okay, Dodgers are missing a couple of key guys. I still think we'll see runs in bunches in this one. If they don't come early, they'll come late. Crooked numbers on the scoreboard at Coors Field. Take the over between the Rockies and the Dodgers. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Yeah, it was a good outcome for my clients last night at WagerTalk.com. We had a strong 4% best bet on the over. And to put it in perspective, the Dodgers scored 9 runs on 14 hits. They left 13 guys on base. So it could have been even more. It could have been 22 runs for perfection. So without bookie, was it a wake-up call? We will see. We will talk more about this and other games as well at 2 o'clock Eastern live here on WagerTalk TV on MLB First Pitch. So be sure to check that out. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and click the bell for instant alerts when shows and videos go live here on WagerTalk TV. Thumbs up, like, and comment below. We read all the comments and we reply back. All right, let's bring on the prop master, Andy Lang. Normally we have Arthur DeCesar, but summer has officially begun. The NBA playoffs ended last night, Andy, so I think Art's already at the beach. No, Art works extremely hard. I think he'll be on with us Friday. And Andy, you and I will actually be hosting Friday because Teddy gets a well-deserved day off this Friday as well. And the Prez will be back next week, or at least he says. Look at that. Teddy's ready for the beach, too. I can picture Teddy covers on the California beach on Friday this weekend. Andy Lang, great follow on Twitter at Bump Sports. And Andy, I meant to message you back. I just happened to catch one in my timeline yesterday about your 1 o'clock Eastern time lunch at a local sports bar. Tell us about that. Oh, he's speechless. It was such a good story. He's speechless.
Everybody's mute. So, unmute before you come on air.
So local little watering hole on the west side. I was over there and I was like, I haven't been in here in a while. I'll stop in and grab lunch. So I'm sitting at the bar. This guy comes in next to me and he orders a Jack Daniels and water in a styrofoam cup and a Long Island.
A traveler.
I was like, okay, we're playing in the big leagues today. So sitting there with my chicken tenders basket.
Andy, that was my Prez moment. Since I'm hosting for the Prez, we'd have a non-sports moment. We had to have a culture moment. I thought that was a pretty good one. I just pops up. I'm reading NBA Finals, and 1 o'clock, Jack and water in a styrofoam glass as I'm having lunch. For some reason, that struck me as funny. Anyway, we'll look at the NHL Finals in a moment. Let's do UFC Fight Night for this weekend. What's something you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm really surprised at this line. Sergey Pavlovich and Alexander Volkov, you can take under 1.5 rounds at pretty reasonable juice. I see 154. I also see 145 on a couple of books. So Pavlovich has been in 8 UFC fights, and none of them have been to the second round. So I guess I'm kind of confused at this one. On the other side, Volkov's last 4 fights, they haven't made it to round 3. 3 of them have ended in the first round. We know what Pavlovich's game is. It is hit you as hard as humanly possible and try and knock you out. Volkov probably going to try and clinch. I would not want to stand at distance against Pavlovich, but Volkov's going to have the advantage on the ground. If he's got really long legs and arms, and if Pavlovich doesn't knock him out, Volkov can get him to the ground where it's big advantage Alexander Volkov. He can finish with submissions. He's finished with ground and pound. Either way, I think somebody's getting finished pretty early in this fight. I was really, really surprised to see like around the minus 150. There have been some fights recently where the under 1.5 was like minus 250 or minus 298 last week. So with these big boys who can finish, this is absolutely a prop I would look at.
Yeah, there's a under 1.5 minus 250 on this week's card with Ribeiro and I'm going to try to pronounce Galshilov.
I would take the over in that
under
one.
1.5.
Yeah, I would take the over.
Take at the plus price, at the big plus. So one of the concepts that Prez talks about is you bet the lowest totals under, you bet the highest totals over. That the issue is at the margins where the totals are difficult to price. Does that work for UFC?
Oh man, I don't know. There's a lot you kind of got to take into account with the totals, and I actually think price is the biggest one. You can do alt lines with some of these totals and get like different prices and get a little bit more juice, but you can use them as parlay pieces. But I don't think there's really a comparison to other sports with UFC. A lot of it, like some of it has to do with what cage are they fighting in? Are they in the smaller apex cage where, you know, the action is going to be like you just in a more compressed cage and you got more action? Or is it in a big wider cage? Are these fighters on short notice? Is one of them coming off a knockout loss where his chin might be a little bit glassy? And yes, actually Pavlovich got knocked out in his last fight. So I don't know if there's really a comparison with other sports here.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about that too, that's a theory I like a lot. And Gabe Morency and I have talked about it as well. Other cappers, Ralph Michaels and I think you can make a case it probably works better in the big sports like NFL, baseball, NBA, the big volume sports, because there's more public money in that. The UFC lines, Andy, probably can be a little sharp at times as well. So it's a smaller market. But it is an interesting concept, something I'd not thought about with a sport like the UFC. Live chat is bumping. Ray D'Amico, Daryl Turner, Big Daddy, always great to see you. Leg Show Magazine, and also Ruzin. He says, Prez is on vacation. No wonder why my blood pressure is down. That's why Teddy's is down. Although we are pushing Teddy today with the muted mics, and we're running behind schedule here, Andy. So I'm going to ask you more non-sports questions just to see if I can get him to snap, because I do have a plus money wager on that. Now let's talk NHL.
What are you guys
finals.
talking about?
What are you talking about? I'm off on Friday. I was watching some old Seinfelds the other night, man. Oh God, Jerry Stiller's father. Oh, Jerry Stiller, Ben Stiller's father. So funny. Got a lot of problem with you peoples. All right, Andy, Game 5 NHL Finals tonight. Very well could be the end of the hockey season as well, but you're the prop master at WagerTalk.com. Give us a player prop that you're looking at in Game 5 tonight.
Take a little sprinkle on Zach Hyman under 3.5 shots on goal. Pretty simple handicap. He has not gone over one time this series. Every game has been under. 2 out of 4 games, he didn't even have over 3.5 shots, let alone shots on goal. Florida has been fantastic about not allowing shots on goal in some of these games. So got to believe the defense is ramped up. For the most part, they've done a pretty good job kind of keeping some of the bigger names in check. I know the last game was kind of an outlier, but I expect the Florida defense to get back to their ways. They just do a great job of muddying up some of the bigger name guys, and we've seen some of the, like in some of these games where Edmonton scores, it's not the bigger name guys. So guys like Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, actually unders have been pretty decent plays because of the price. So I'm surprised they haven't moved this to 2.5 shots on goal, but I'll take a sprinkle on his under tonight.
I wanted to ask you about that, because if he's gone under in every game so far in the series, wouldn't they adjust it down to 2.5, or is the amount of juice, like what's the difference in juice between a 3.5 and a 2.5? Is it 100 cents? Is it more than that?
If they were moving this to 2.5, they would make the over juice to minus
Right.
180 because he's had 3 shots on goal in several of the games. That's the problem that the books run into with some of these props. Okay, let's put it at 3.5 shots on goal, and then he lands on 3. So they probably are taking money on the under. I'm not the only one that's noticed. But then if they lower it, then you just come right back and take the over because the value's on that. So there's a few players like that. Gustav Forsling was another one where they were just getting crushed on the over 1.5 shots on goal. They move it up to 2.5, and then he went 4 straight games under. So there is some kind of different notes. Whenever the books make a move, I immediately lay off. So if this were to go to 2.5 shots on goal, there is no way I would play the under. In fact, I would look at taking the over. But really, there really isn't a rhyme or reason to why or when they move some of these lines. Sometimes I expect them to move them pretty quick. Other times I think they wait too long. So, but for the purposes of tonight, let's take the under.
Yeah, the difference, of course, between 2.5 and 3.5 would be like 33%, right? That would be like a 6-point underdog going to like 9 or something in basketball or football. So that's a pretty substantial difference when you're talking about these small numbers. That's Andy Lang, the prop master at WagerTalk.com. Andy, we talk some UFC, we talk some NHL. You do soccer as well. What else you got? Lacrosse, darts, perhaps. What else you got going on at WagerTalk.com?
The big thing this week is PFL. We swept the PFL card last week. That makes a 5-1 run in PFL plays this season. We got a 5% best bet. That goes off on Friday, but we're going to put all of our PFL and UFC plays this week with it. Number one, last 11 weeks in MMA, we're seeing that sport really, really well. Like I said, coming off a sweep last week and looking to hit big. Absolutely love this card. This is a very, very bettable card. You got to understand the tournament style of PFL. We do it well, and the results speak for themselves. So encourage everyone to grab that, and let's make some money in UFC and PFL this week.
What's
PFL?
PFL?
Right there.
Professional Fighters League.
Okay.
They do a.
I'm like, what? You're talking about PFL. I'm like, PFL. What is it?
No, it's great. It's different from UFC. UFC events, you just have the main event and a bunch of undercard fights. PFL is a season-long tournament style where you accumulate points based on do you get finishes. So a lot of people don't understand how important it is to know the tournament style and what the points are because you have a lot of motivated fighters that say, I got to get a round one finish. So a lot of value in unders with those situations, and that's where we can take advantage.
Yeah, that's part of Andy's number one MMA ranking the last 11 weeks, PFL, along with UFC. And then, of course, he does a lot of the other off sports as well. It's a great way to diversify your bankroll and your portfolio this summer, not just baseball. There's other things out there to bet on, and we've got it covered for you at WagerTalk.com. That's Andy Lang, the prop master. Andy and I will both be back on Friday hosting the show. Teddy, you and I will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday hosting the show. And once again, $2 Tuesday for Ross Benjamin, Jesse Schule, also full-time exclusive now at WagerTalk.com. So it was great seeing them today. Andy Lang and Teddy, take us home. We do have a special tomorrow. I believe we have a customer appreciation special tomorrow, Wednesday. So be sure to tune in tomorrow to find out more about it here on the show. Baseball, 2 o'clock Eastern, live with Dan Alexander, myself, Steve Merrill, and Eric Pauly of the Gold Sheet. And once again, if you're watching us live at 2 Eastern, we do interact with you on the chat, whether it's here on YouTube TV, on Wager Talk TV on YouTube, YouTube Shorts, or if you're day drinking now that it's summertime on Instagram, you can chime in as long as we can decipher the message. We'll answer those questions as well. Baseball, 2 o'clock Eastern, and archive 24/7 here on Wager Talk TV. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts, and comment below. Teddy Covers, take us home.
Yeah, you talked about $2 Tuesday today. You talk about half off Wednesday tomorrow. All daily play packages are going to be priced at half off on Wednesday, June 19th. That includes all multi-game packages. That includes all 5% plays. So today, tomorrow, 2 great days to visit the website, WagerTalk.com. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games. Best of luck with all your bets. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, right here on Wager Talk TV. Cheers.